Hey, Mountain Christian. Happy Tuesday. Before we jump into the devotion for today, I just wanted to say thank you for giving me a good reason to get up, comb my hair, put on a shirt, all the things we tell people we're doing, but we're probably not. Crazy times we're living in, right? I was thinking about crazy times, and the thing I was thinking about is how uncertain everything feels, right? We just don't do well as humans with uncertainty. And it doesn't matter if it's uncertainty about a relationship or the circumstances we're in or anything else. We are always looking for that certainty, the stability, some kind of window into what's going to happen. And when we don't have that, it creates anxiety. So the question everyone's asking is there a roadmap? Is there some kind of progression that helps us get through not just now, but life? It made me think of a great set of verses in Romans 12. And so I'd like to go there today for our devotion. If you read in Romans 12, verses 10 through 13, Paul writes, "Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Give preference to one another in honor, not lagging behind in diligence, fervent in spirit, and serving the Lord." And here's the progression: rejoicing in hope, persevering in tribulation, devoted to prayer, and contributing to needs of the saints while practicing hospitality. In those four ideas, there's a progression that is wildly valuable for our lives. Let's look at each one of them. What does it mean to rejoice in hope? The idea that comes in the scripture, whether it's in Philippians or in other places, that we can rejoice even in trials, comes squarely from the thing that we find our rejoicing in, what we find our hope in. Now, if you're like me, you've probably spent time hoping in all kinds of temporal things, whether it was a paycheck or security of job or security of purpose in teaching your kids. Whatever it is, we hope in certain things. And when we go through tribulation, they get tried, they get challenged. Paul is saying here, we rejoice in the hope that we have. The hope is Jesus. Be conscious about what you're finding yourself hope in, especially during these times. Because what we hope in and our ability to rejoice in those is totally central to the rest of the progression that Paul talks about. And when you see the next piece, you understand why what we hope in is so critical. Persevering in tribulation. So first he says, rejoice in hope. Then he says, persevere in tribulation, meaning stay with it. Now, the only way you can stand a chance of not completely falling to the circumstances is to go back to what you hope in. When you hope in Jesus, when your rock, when your anchor, your foundation is Jesus, you can rejoice even in tribulations. So what do you do with that? What's the action? Well, that's the third idea that Paul brings up, devoted to prayer. Not just praying sometimes, but devoted, meaning that the energy that we spend, and if you're like me, you've spent energy on all kinds of crazy things like hoarding supplies in the last week that really don't help us. Paul says our devotion should be to the hope that we have in him while we go through tribulations, while we stay connected to him. We have so many opportunities to be devoted to prayer, so many opportunities to remember what we hope in, to remind ourselves to persevere in the tribulation because what we hope in, to spend our energy devoted to prayer, lifting up those things that we have going on. All of those make sense, but the fourth thing is a little confusing. The fourth thing in this progression is the idea of contributing to the needs of the saints or practicing hospitality. Why is it that Paul would exhort us in tribulation to be conscious of the needs around us, to be externally thinking about who God has put in our lives, how to practice hospitality, the care of others? It's because of the purpose he has called us to. And in fact, he starts that chapter, the beginning of chapter 12, by saying, "Therefore I urge you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living and holy sacrifice, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service of worship." We're all at least kind of sacrificing. But what would it look like for us to sacrifice our security, our comfort, all of those things that right now seem so important in the service for others? Our temptation is going to be to pull everything to the cord, to think about how to preserve what we have, to save enough, to put the walls up. And yet the call of God is to be conscious of the needs of strangers, to be hospitable, to worry about others. This is why the church is the organization. It's the Jesus-built organization for times just like we're in. So if you, like me, have found yourself really worried about how you're going to make it, look for others. Rejoice in the hope that is Him. Sacrifice as an act of worship. Persevere and be devoted to prayer. Today, Tuesday, is going to be the opportunity to do that. And we might think of these ideas as something just for now in these crazy times, but you know what? These are really the ideas, the progression for life. As Paul said last week in his devotion, to walk worthy of the calling. What an incredible opportunity to be available, to have the hope that is exactly what the world around us needs. Go out, be strong, and stay distant. Have a great Tuesday, Mountain.